In today's world, it's almost impossible to be alone, isn't it? Thanks to technological advancements, the entire world has become more interconnected than ever before. Knowledge and information are more accessible, and an ordinary person now has the ability to communicate with more people than the most powerful figures in history ever could. But somewhere in this process, while humanity was striving to develop ways to connect with others more effectively, we forgot what it truly means to connect with ourselves. We forgot how it feels to be alone, in silence, with our own thoughts. We lost our attention spans and patience, surrounding ourselves with endless distractions and quick dopamine hits, all available with just a single click. And in this strange way, while trying to build a better life for ourselves, we've forgotten ourselves. Our minds are overwhelmed with thousands of unnecessary pieces of information flying before our eyes, most of which we can't even remember a second later. It's clear that our brains haven't evolved to handle such an overload. The very concept of solitude is no longer the same as it was in Schopenhauer's time. Back then, one had to be in the physical presence of another person to communicate with them. Today, we can spend 24 hours locked in our rooms and still communicate instantly with multiple people at once. So when we speak of solitude here, we are talking about true solitude, the kind where no thoughts or ideas from other people reach us. Ask yourself, when was the last time you experienced this? When was the last time you sat in your room thinking about something without a notification on your phone distracting you? Schopenhauer believed the following: a man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free. Essentially, this means that when we are surrounded by others, we are not truly ourselves. And it makes sense. It has to be that way. For society to survive, and for us to survive in society, we must learn to cooperate with others, to agree, and sometimes even to remain silent if we disagree, for the sake of some personal goal. Without this self-sacrifice, we would never get anywhere in this society, and the modern person, if they want to survive, simply has to do this. But modern society has become almost too interconnected. It has shaped its moral principles according to what exclusively serves the community, and in this chaos, we completely forgotten ourselves. According to Schopenhauer, it is precisely social norms and all those countless social distractions that most hinder an individual from developing and reaching their own conclusions. Solitude, for him, is the only way to delve deeper into oneself, find peace, and instead of listening to society, begin to listen to oneself and finally understand one's existential position and reach new conclusions about life as a phenomenon. He believed that deep philosophical thoughts and creativity can only arise from within us, and that if we focus too much on society, we pollute those ideas, preventing them from coming out in their true form. True introspection is only possible when we are alone, and no matter how difficult and uncomfortable it may be, it is, for him, the only way to understand our desires, drives, and motives. The only way for a person to become what they are. Through this, one has the opportunity to resolve the sufferings and the existential problems that may have tormented them until then, problems that excessive socializing never solved but merely covered up. Moreover, solitude is a valuable tool for reprogramming ourselves. Schopenhauer was extremely skeptical of social norms and morality, considering them quite shallow and limiting. However, as much as he knew this, he was also aware that if he spent enough time among people, he too would eventually be swallowed up by these social norms and the morality of the herd. Therefore, He concluded that solitude is the antidote to society. It allows us to think openly and draw our own conclusions without the pressure of social limitations, and the more time a person spends contemplating deep topics in solitude, the more they distance themselves from society, thus reprogramming themselves. According to him, solitude was also the only way for a person to escape the trap of life that causes suffering, the trap that forces us to endlessly strive for something new and better, which ultimately leads to dissatisfaction. It was for him the way to quiet the external world and will, so that our being, even temporarily, could break free from those endless chains and truly rest from the hellish cycle caused by constant striving. But just as there are risks when we avoid solitude entirely, there are also risks when we give ourselves entirely to it. He believed that too much solitude leads to such detachment from society that, over time, we cease to tolerate even the smallest things, and things that once didn't bother us now begin to irritate us. Everyday life in which we once thrived suddenly takes an enormous effort to even maintain. Therefore, we must understand both sides and, depending on our goal, choose either one side or some middle ground. For example, if you're engaged in a creative occupation, writing a book or thinking about some ideas, avoiding solitude essentially means avoiding your true potential and authenticity. Instead of creating something new, you're creating recycled goods that came from society, not from yourself. No successful and productive genius was a genius by mere talent. They became geniuses because they had the chance to spend time alone and without distractions, allowing them to give birth to their brilliant creations. It's also worth noting that Schopenhauer considered reading to be one of society's distractions as well. So, if you decide to engage in Schopenhauerian solitude, books are not the way. He advocated for true solitude, where the mind learns to spend time with itself, to engage itself, and to reach conclusions on its own. As he put it in one of his aphorisms, when we read, another person thinks for us. We merely repeat his mental process. In learning to write, the pupil goes over with his pen what the teacher has outlined in pencil. So in reading, the greater part of the work of thought is already done for us. This is why it relieves us to take up a book after being occupied with our own thoughts. And in reading, the mind is in fact only the playground of another's thoughts. So it comes about that if anyone spends almost the whole day in reading, and by way of relaxation devotes the intervals to some thoughtless pastime, he gradually loses the capacity for thinking. Just as the man who always writes at last forgets how to walk. This is the case with many learned persons. They have read themselves stupid. Modern technology has given us much, but it has also taken away a lot. The concept of solitude has become foreign to us, almost frightening, and Schopenhauer, even centuries later, clearly explains why it is important and why the art of solitude must never be forgotten. Turn off your phone notifications, disconnect from the internet, close your laptop, and take a pen and paper. Sit for 15 minutes with it and try to practice your solitude. On the first day, you probably won't write anything. Maybe not on the second or third day either. But at some point, the passivity will become boring, and your mind will decide to entertain itself. Through such small yet powerful steps, we reclaim the art of solitude that Schopenhauer considered the key to inner freedom.